Everyone. Welcome to week 2 of the Collaboration Corner, where I read you stories from you, the viewers, who decide to um, send in the stories to be read. And um, so far, we have not gotten any, but that is okay. Because I will just continue on with my weekly story. I'll probably read it once again. I'll read it twice this today, and then just for everyone who misses the first time can hear it a second time. Um, Also, there are places where you can send in art to be displayed as I read the stories. These stories are going to be based on a world that I created in Dungeons and Dragons, and I'll put the characters through those kind of scenarios. Um, so, without any further ado, let us begin with the weekly story that I am writing. Um, so, this one is titled The Love Story. That is love with an apostrophe S. Um, so, let us begin. It was 2 years ago that I met the love of my life. Her hair was a golden color richer than the wheat in the fields. Her eyes were gems that sparkled in the midday sun. She was the sweetest woman I had ever met, but I decided to leave her when the guild needed help clearing a dungeon that had recently been discovered. The tall gray spire shot up into the sky. The top of it a flat roof with crenellation all around it. The lights of the tower were unlit, revealing to us that this dungeon had not yet been cleared. Since the gray stones of the dungeon had been in view, we have had our guard up. The empty plains of the tall grasslands were the empty plains filled with tall grass were high enough for anything to hide in. The sun started to set on the third day of the trek towards the tower, so we started to set up camp. Our party of 10 consisted of 3 swordsmen, a wizard, 2 clerics, a bard, 2 of our most skilled knights, and a rogue. We had no idea what to expect, so we decided to make the team fairly heavy on our frontliners. We had enough supplies for 2 more weeks, plus the emergency rations that our wizard has with whatever spells he can prepare. We were all on foot, so there wasn't much storage space for anything too big. The party set up camp on the side of the road in the tall grass and took a moment to place down bedrolls and pitch tents. The watches came and went, as silent as the night itself, and as the sun started to peek over the horizon, my companions began to rouse from their slumbers. As I strummed my lute gently, singing a soft elven song that I had learned in my time traveling afar. We had been very excited since the tower came into view, and since we saw that none of the lights were on inside. The only thing that concerned Qualm, the red-skinned tiefling wizard, was the beast that guards the tower had not been seen yet. Qualm had his books out and was searching through them relentlessly. I just don't get why Sora can't do a little research beforehand so that we know what to prepare for. I understand that completely. If I knew what we were facing, I would know exactly what to prepare for. Qualm kind of looked around, confused, and eventually looked back at his books. After we had cleared camp and started walking towards the tower, we saw at the front large wooden doors. Everyone looked towards Celia, our rogue, and she rolled her eyes and walked towards the door. She was a tan human that was almost as tall as I was. Her gray cloak hung over one of her shoulders, and she quickly pulled it on and tied it tight. She ran her fingers over the door, gave it a knock, and with her ear pressed against the wood. "It appears to be barred from the inside, but I bet I can get it open." She took out from her pack a large crowbar, and promptly pressed it into the crack between the two halves of the door. The wood creaked and groaned unnaturally, then suddenly sent splinters flying outward. I quickly ducked into the grass, with only a few of the splinters hitting me. Qualm reached out his hand, and a golden shield appeared in front of him, deflecting the shards of wood flying at him. The rest of the party just hid behind their shields, like the weasels they were. The door started laughing, and Qualm flew into action. He pulled from his components pouch on his hip a chip of mica, and crushed it in his hand and threw it at the door, and the mimic let out a wretched screech, and the sickening crunching noise could be heard. The wood started to crack and splinter, but the mimic threw forward its pseudopods, but the rogue nimbly dodged both tendrils that flew forward from the door. Our knights moved forward with their great swords, and both started slashing at it, cutting the mimic's mouth and eyes. I watched them hack and slash, and decided I'd do something. So I pulled out my lute and focused for a second. I started playing and felt my voice carry the magical incantations into the door, and felt them take hold, and it seized up, unmoving. Its eyes looked around, confused, and darted frantically. Our fighters saw this and took the chance to wail away at it. They completely demolished it. The swords and axes chipped away the wood until it was nothing but splinters. After it had fallen, we stood up to get our bearings. The rogue came out of hiding and grabbed the crowbar harshly and said, "Maybe next time we should see if it's magical before I step up to it." We all looked in awe at the massive corridor in front of us. The floor was made from smooth green-gray bricks. The towering walls were made from the same bricks, but every 10 feet there were sconces with unlit torches inside of them. The sconces were a dark steel, plainly decorated with a rose pattern on the front. Qualm stepped ahead of us and walked down the corridor. Seeing that, everyone snapped out of the trance that they had been in, looking at this corridor in awe, and all hurriedly walked forwards, catching up to Qualm. The knights took post on either end of him. Our fighters took post behind those, so I and the rogue took the back. The darkness of the corridor engulfed me as we trudged forward. The light of the open door slowly turned to black, but I had no doubt that Qualm could see what was going on. The darkness continued, and I kept following the sound of footsteps in front of me, until they were gone.